Hello and welcome back to another episode of TWIG, and this week the biggest Chronos update since it was first released has come out, and also just for this weekend there's a new limited time mode in Chronos. So yeah, it's really exciting. Let's get into the video. So as always, I'll start off by putting the changelogs for this week's update on the screen now so you can pause the video and read them if you want. And I'll also put on the changelogs for when the limited time mode came out. So the new items in the shop this week are the uncommon Wink Taunt, the epic red headset core, the legendary gamer red avatar, the legendary angelic warrior avatar, the rare snow foxtail avatar, and the legendary pirate evo avatar. So since there's a lot of Chronos changes this week, I'll leave that until later, and I'll start off with the other changes. So yeah, there's been one global change this week, and it's just a smaller one, but I think it's quite a nice change, and that is that there's been a taunt menu added in the hub. So yeah, you can now use the taunts from Prop Hunt in the hub to, I guess, sort of just communicate with other people. I mean, you can use the chat, but it's just nice to be able to use the taunts in the hub. Yeah, it's just sort of an extra use for the taunts. So yeah, so there's also been a few little changes in hyper races this week. So yeah, the first change is that there's a new map in battle mode. It's called Mesa. Yeah, I think it's just nice that you can play on another map now, because before you could just play on Plaza. I mean, there was another map before that, Toy Castle, but yeah, that was removed, and so you could only play on the Plaza map, but now you can also play on the Mesa map, so yeah, it just mixes up the game a bit, makes it less repetitive. And the other change in Hyper Races this week is that music has been added. I think it's a really good addition, because before there was a lot of silence when you were playing, and yeah, it didn't really fit the whole Hyper Races game. Yeah, there was sound when you picked up an item box or went over a speed pad, but other than that, it was just sort of a lot of silence. But yeah, the new music, it sort of fills the gaps and means that there's always sound in the background. And yeah, I think it's a really good addition. And also, Galaxite did a really good job on the music. It really fits Hyper Races. I think it's just really good music. So yeah. And something else that I think is quite nice is that in the extra things menu, you can change the volume of the music. So yeah, if you don't want to listen to it and you just want to have the game sounds, you can turn it down to 0. Or if you want to make it a bit louder, you can turn it up. If you want to make it a bit quieter, you can turn it down. But yeah, I think it's just quite nice that you have that ability to change the volume. So now it's time to talk about the new Chronos update. So yeah, the first thing is that there's a new area on the map. I don't know what to call it. Normally people have names for the different areas on the map, but yeah, I don't know what name to give it. But yeah, it's in the bottom left of the map, and it's got quite good loot. There's quite a lot of shulker boxes, although it's quite hard to find the loot if you don't know where to look for it. So yeah, I haven't really landed there too much, because I don't really know where all the loot is. And yeah, when I land there, I don't really end up with good stuff. But I think if you learn the best routes of where to get the different shulkers and which ones to get, I think it could be a really good place to land. So before I go over some of the bigger changes in Chronos, like the perks and the new bounty system and also the new LTM, I'm going to quickly talk about some of the smaller changes that I think are still worth mentioning. So yeah, the first one is that the amount of time that you get for eliminating someone has gone down from 120 to 60 seconds. So yeah, overall people are going to have less time. I think it does balance the game a bit more, because whenever you saw someone with no time, you would always just want to go for them, because 120 seconds is quite a lot of time. So the next change is that bow shots deal even less knockback than they did before when the bow isn't fully charged. So yeah, I'm pretty sure this change is to try and combat bow spammers, because yeah, it means that it's a bit harder for them to like keep on hitting you back, so you can't catch up with them, and it makes it easier to catch up with them and hit them with the sword. So yeah, I think that's a really nice change. So yeah, the next change is that mythic chests now are just as good as legendary chests. So yeah, I think before mythic chests were a bit worse than legendary chests in terms of what loot they gave you. But yeah, I guess it's now a bit more rewarding if you get Vault or Time Warp. So yeah, the next change is that you can now buy wooden swords in the shop. I don't know why you couldn't buy them before, but yeah, now you can for 60 seconds. The next change is that backpack upgrades and upgrade tokens can now be sold at the shop. So yeah, you can sell backpack upgrades for 30 seconds, and the upgrade tokens, I'm not sure exactly how much you sell them for because I didn't actually get to do it. But I think it's either going to be the same, so 30 seconds, or a bit more because I think upgrade tokens are a bit rarer. But yeah, the next change is that you can now extinguish fire in the corruption by just punching it. I don't know why that's a necessary change. It's a very small change, but I guess now it's a bit easier to get back to the safe zone. You don't have to avoid the fire, you can just punch it out. So yeah, I guess that's quite nice. And also, time warps from shulker loot have been made a little bit rarer. So there's also been a few other little changes with the map. So yeah, the first thing is that the vault locations have changed. So yeah, I don't know exactly where all of the vaults are, but I do know that some of them are still where they were, and some of them have changed. Like the vault in the pyramid in the desert area is back. So yeah, then also some of the shop locations have changed. So yeah, there's no longer a vault in the cove, which I think is a good thing because otherwise cove was pretty overpowered. So yeah, it's not as overpowered as it was. And then also the shop in the sort of Asian area has sort of been moved a bit. So now it's time to talk about the new bounty mechanic. So yeah, I think it's a really cool addition. Basically, what it does is it tracks a player on the map and then gives you a reward if you kill them. So yeah, you get bounty contracts from shulker boxes, but you can also get them from the shop for 50 seconds. And yeah, if you use a bounty contract, it'll give you a random player on the map as a bounty, and it'll track them on the map in blue. And if you kill them, you'll get a reward, and the reward is an extra 60 seconds of time, and it'll also fully heal you. But the thing is, if they kill you, then they'll get the reward instead. But yeah, I think it's a really good addition. It means there's sort of another way of trying to get kills, because you sort of know where someone is to go for them and get a kill. So you're not just sort of running around like headless chickens. But yeah. So now I'm going to go through some of the changes to the perks. So yeah, first, the Vault Raider perk has been buffed so that the compass now always points to the closest vault key. Next, Vampire has been both nerfed and buffed. Because yeah, it used to give you 5 seconds of absorption hearts after you get a kill. But yeah, in doubles it's been nerfed so that it only lasts 3 seconds, and in solos it's been buffed to last 6 seconds. So yeah, next, airstrike has been nerfed so that the minimum distance you need to shoot someone from while gliding to insta-kill them is 7 instead of 5. So yeah, next, the weakening arrows perk has been nerfed. A lot of people used the weakening arrows perk. It was quite overpowered, but yeah, it's been nerfed so that arrows no longer do any damage. But yeah, the weakness now lasts 1 to 5 seconds, depending on the different tier of bow you've got. And yeah, also with tier 5 arrows, it also slightly slows the person down. So there's also been a bunch of new picks added this week, 12 to be exact, which is quite a lot. But yeah, there's been 2 new picks added in all of the already existing categories. So yeah, that's offense and defense and utility. So yeah, there's been 2 new perks added in each of those, and then there's also been 2 new categories added, which are called Bounties and Team, and there's 3 perks in each of those. So yeah, there's a lot of perks, and I can't really go through all of them and what they all do. So I'm gonna pick a few of them that I think are the best. But yeah, so first of all, there's Armor Specialist in the defense category. Basically, what it does is in each of the shulker boxes that you open that is unlooted, it'll give you armor in it that is the same tier as the the like shulker box you open. So if you open a rare shulker box, a blue one, it'll give you tier 3 armor, and if you open like a legendary one, an orange one, it'll give you tier 5 armor. So yeah, it's very good for getting high tier armor. You literally just need like one legendary chest or a mythic one, and then you've already got tier 5 armor. So yeah, it's very good. And then there's also this sort of the same thing, but with swords, called the Sword Specialist, which is in the offense category. And yeah, it just does the same thing with swords. So the tier of sword that you get is the same as the tier of the shulker box you open. But yeah, they're very good for getting very good loot. If you're using the Sword Specialist, it's very likely you're gonna end up with a netherite sword, and if you use the Armor Specialist, it's very likely you're gonna end up with tier 5 armor. So yeah, they're very good. They're quite overpowered. And then the next perk I'm going to talk about is in the bounty section, and it's the very first one, and it's feedback loop. And basically what it does is it gives you never-ending bounties. It'll keep giving you bounties when you complete them. And yeah, it basically just means you can get loads of bounties in a row and get loads of kills. It's very good for getting high kill games, although you don't get any rewards from from completing the bounties. You still get a lot of high kill games. So yeah. So finally, I'm going to talk about the new limited time mode, or LTM, in Chronos. So yeah, it's called Chronos Scavenger, and basically how it works is the normal shulker boxes that spawn on the map, they don't spawn. There's like no normal shulker boxes on the map where they would normally be. The only ways of getting loot are by killing other players or by time warps. So yeah, when you kill someone, they'll drop a shulker box on the floor where they were, like where they died. So yeah, you can loot that to get loot. But also, the time warps are much more frequent than they normally are in the normal Chronos game, except it's not just mythic chests like normal. It's basically just any old chest. So yeah, there's sort of two ways of getting loot, and yeah, also the zone is much smaller than it is normally, which means the games are also much faster. But yeah, it's very hectic, especially towards the end of the game, because there's a lot of people in the same sort of area, and it's also much harder to get loot. Yeah, you can sort of win with just a stone sword. Like I've done that a few times before, and so yeah, you don't really need really good loot, but yeah, it does really help. But yeah, when the zone gets smaller and there's a lot of people dying, there's a lot of shulker boxes on the floor that you can sort of loot to get better stuff. So yeah, there's a bunch of different ways of playing. You can sort of go for the time leader, because the time leader drops sort of better loot than other players. Or you can just sort of hide out and try and get other people's loot that they've dropped. So yeah, the game is quite RNG dependent. Yeah, some staff did admit that you do have to rely quite a lot on RNG to do well. Although I think that sort of makes it more fun because it is very hectic. But yeah, and also since the games are shorter, it doesn't really matter if you have a bad game because you can just quickly go into another one. But yeah, it is quite competitive because yeah, also at the end of the weekend when the LTM goes away, the top 10 players on the leaderboard will be given an exclusive title. So yeah, people really want to try and be one of those 10 people on the leaderboard at the end. I sort of want to get on there, but I don't think it's going to happen because other people have way too much time on their hands. But yeah, so I've got a few tips for doing better in the new LTM. So yeah, first of all, when the game starts, I sort of like to land on a shop so I can buy a wooden sword, because yeah, it's quite useful for getting loot early on because like barely anyone has it. It's quite hard to get early on. But I want to try and land at a shop that is sort of near where some of the time warps are spawning, because that's sort of where a lot of people are going to land to try and get some loot. So yeah, it's just sort of a better way of trying to get kills early on, to get some loot early on, if you get a wooden sword from the shop. So yeah, and also you want to try and go for the time leader, because they will drop better stuff. And yeah, also you need to keep in mind that you're not always going to be able to upgrade items. Because yeah, the zone gets quite small, so sometimes upgrade stations are in the corruption, so you can't really go and get them. So you need to remember that, and if you have an opportunity to try and go to an upgrade station to upgrade items early on, it's probably a good idea to do it as soon as you can if you really want to upgrade the item, because later on it might be very hard to find an upgrade station, because most of them will be in the corruption. So yeah, so that's it for this episode of TWIG. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like, and also if you're not already, please subscribe, because it really helps me out and also means you won't miss any future episodes of this series. So yeah, bye.